something at your boss there?
What's that?
I just saw Katie Mullins or something.
Mullins.
Mullins.
Kaylah, I don't know who it is.
That was Mullins.
Yeah. Justin.
Shoot. Yeah, her Robbie, wasn't it Robbie?
Robbie's wife, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, we're going to give Jay Kennedy's going to be teaching this class. So we're going to give it a few minutes for him to hop on from the Dave Jenks class, and then we'll get started here in a little bit.
Hello.
Hi, Jay.
Hey, Tiffany.
How's it going?
Good. How is it on that side of the bridge?
Oh, this side of the bridge is doing well. So I just sent out a reminder email and said, want to get rid of green sheets? Join today. And here we are with a group of people ready to get rid of green sheets.
Ready to get rid of green sheets. Now, sometimes you might have to remind me, it's been so long. You know, we transitioned in October of last year. So
Yep.
It's been a year since I've seen a green sheet.
Yep.
Which is pretty amazing too, by the way.
It is. And once you go back, no one's going to regret leaving those things behind.
Nobody's going to be mad about it, because
cool.
Most of the information you have to put in there, you already have, and you just click a button.
Yep. So I think you're good to go. I'm going to record this so that, it's already recording, so that we have it for future reference. But I'm going to let you go. And once we get to some of that commissions part, because you're really good on the compliance side with all that great opportunity stuff.
All those really important things.
Really important things, because to get you paid quickly, and then I'll help tag in with the commissions.
Okay. Well, greetings to everyone. My name is Jay. I am the Market Center Tech Trainer for the West Ashley office. Happy to be here with you guys today, running you through this. As I was mentioning to Tiffany, we transitioned as an office back in October of last year. So we've been not using green sheets for quite a while now. And as we said, it's a really cool thing to get away from, because those things are really kind of obnoxious. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Does anybody have any expectations? Like, what do you expect to get out of this? All right, I'm a talker, so if y'all don't talk, I'm just going to fill the air.
It really is. The other thing too, I will say this, we are going to be transitioning out of green sheets. So you've heard conversations that e-edge is going away. That I've learned, I heard that it was included green sheets. It's not including green sheets. So green sheets are still going to be around for a little bit of time. However, they are going to be ending and no one's going to be able to use them. And hopefully at the end of this training, you'll want to just stop using them immediately anyway. So that's what hopes is green sheets aren't necessarily like, we're not taking them away from you right now. So this is like ultimate freak out. However, when you learn this new way, it'll change the game for you.
So for clarity, Tiffany, just so that I understand a little bit too of what they're used to doing. Right now, they are using command for compliance, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
And their checklist looked very the same as us. We made sure that the checklist, everything looks the same. We're uploading DAs into command just the same.
Perfect.
And we're just not using offers and commissions.
Gotcha. So what you're going to see here as we go through it, and I'll give you a sample. I might actually even try to do it under the Teams. No, that wouldn't work. Anyway, I'll show you a few things about how it works and why we're doing it this way. And again, it's one of those things that in the long run is going to save you a lot of time because all of this information is already going to be in your opportunity. And it's just verifying it and submitting it to Tiffany to get paid. So who is familiar with, is anybody using Dotloop? Let's start there. Yes. So a handful of people are using Dotloop. Okay. Who's using DocuSign? Okay. So at least one person using DocuSign. And is there anyone in the group that is using zip forms through the MLS? Okay. So you're using zip forms and DocuSign? Is that fair to say, Kathy? Okay. And just a reminder, most of you guys are automatically muted. You can unmute yourself at any time and ask questions or communicate with me. Like I told Tiffany, like I said, I'm a talker. So if you don't talk, I'm just going to fill the air. All right. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to share my screen with you, and it's going to be directly in command. So I'm assuming, and if I'm wrong, please let me know, but I'm assuming that most of you are familiar with command or are using it at least to some regular degree. Obviously, we're going to focus specifically on opportunities here today, but I want to make sure that you guys are, kind of clear on where we are. Any questions about this yet so far? All right. So I am going to create a fake opportunity for us to play around in. I may actually already even have one. Let me see. I think I deleted it. I did. So I always use my mom as my guinea pig. So I'm going to create a new opportunity. And we're going to start on the buy side, and we can come back around if we have time and do the listing side. Essentially, what we're doing isn't any different. It's just the difference between a listing a buyer, but the process is the same. So as you can see, I'm just creating a standard buyer opportunity. With some pretty basic information to get us started. I'm going to go ahead and put it as active in the financing qualifications. You'll notice too that when you create an opportunity, it only goes to one of the first 3 phases. and that's cultivate, appointment, or active. Because obviously, if you're just now creating it, it shouldn't already be under contract. So those are the first 3 defaults that it defaults to, and this just is telling you where to place it in the pipeline. It's not super important because obviously you can change it around later, but that's what that's there for. So I'm going to create this one, and we're going to dig in. So first of all, when you're working with a buyer transaction, you don't always know the property address just yet because, you know, they haven't decided on which house they're going to buy. What's different about that on the listing side is that you do. So on the listing side, go ahead and put in the address of the property right here. So go ahead and put in that address. I'm using my own just so that you can see it. And we put in that address. This stuff is important because this page right here, this details tab of your opportunity, is what is going to fill out your green sheet for you. So this is basically like filling out your green sheet, but before you even need to, if that makes any sense, okay? You'll see here on this left side, a lot of these are blank. So this says time frame, estimated close date, appointment scheduled, appointment date, agreement 1. All these sorts of things aren't necessarily super important unless you want to be able to track yourself. That's where this becomes really handy. Like if you want to know how long it typically takes you to get from appointment to closing, then you need to put these dates in, because then Kelly is the AI behind Command. Command will actually track that for you and tell you, hey, typically for you, it takes you 37 days to get from contract to close, or it takes you 54 days to get from appointment to contract, or whatever. And when you're really trying to plan a business or scale a team, those metrics are incredibly important. So it just decide it's up to you how you want to use it, but it's there for you to use if you would like. Initially, this data points at the bottom is reference to the budget. Again, on the buyer side and even on the listing side, you don't exactly know what the transaction is going to be until you have a contract, but you can estimate generally. You know what their budget is on the buy side, you know what they expect to get on the listing side, so you can estimate that here. Commission rate, obviously on the listing side, you have complete control over that. So I would automatically default that to 3%. However, on the buy side, I would encourage you to default it to 2.5%, simply because you don't have control over that number. And I'm sure many of you have seen in the market that 3% is not standard. It is sometimes 2%, 2.5%, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I suggest you default to 2.5% is just from a planning perspective, to be conservative. These numbers are going to help you calculate your, gross GCI, your net GCI, all that sort of stuff. And if you are being conservative, then it's more likely to be accurate. Any questions so far? All right. So another thing I want to point out here is in this lost opportunity. So this lost opportunity is an opportunity, is a toggle switch, if you will, where you were working with this client, be it a buyer or a listing, and then either you fired them or they fired you. One of the two happens. You want to use that toggle switch for a couple different reasons. One, again, it's one of those really important metrics to track. You want to know how many opportunities you had that maybe didn't work out for whatever reason. And you also want to be able to know why it didn't work out, because in 3 years, you may not remember the specific details. So it's really important to use that data to help you, track things. So that's where this is for. If you've duplicated an archive or an opportunity or created one that you didn't need, there's an opportunity for you to archive that opportunity, and it doesn't affect any of the numbers or tracking. This one does affect that, and it's really important for that accuracy. All right, now we're going to move over into the next part of this. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the documents because you guys should be somewhat familiar with this already. If you're beginning, you can start a transaction, and for those of you using .loop, you can use .loop from here and connect to .loop, and it works pretty well. Same is true for DocuSign. I'm going to do DocuSign just so that I can show you what it's supposed to look like. I'm going to come back here because, in all fairness, the actual documents are irrelevant for today's conversation. But what I do want you to see is the I gotta move my Zoom here. What I do want you to see are the checklists. So as Tiffany was talking about earlier, this is the compliance side of command. And so in order for you guys to stay legal with the brokerage, you got to make sure that your documents are uploaded, connected, and so that the brokerage has an opportunity to review them. Keep in mind, license law says that you are an agent of the brokerage, and your clients are clients of the brokerage. And if we don't know that you have clients, then we can't represent our clients the way that license law requires. So the brokerage is really specific about you getting these documents in a timely fashion. I think the technical rule is 48 hours. Is that correct, Tiffany? But the rule of thumb is as soon as humanly possible, get these documents uploaded and put in. Because we don't want you or the brokerage to have the real estate police looking for us.
Jay, can you click on one of those just so that we can
Yep.
go over the subfolders? Because this has
Absolutely.
been a little bit confusing. Each subfolder has specific different required documents in there. And over the last 2 days, it's actually uploaded it so it's in bright red if it's required. And these are the ones that you will not get paid on a compliance side unless those are been uploaded
approved.
and submitted in those locations. So we've had a few people in both market centers just going into the consultation folder and uploading
Everything.
single thing into one folder, and that's going to get declined as well. So we want to make sure we're putting in consultation, you're putting your listing agreement or your agency relationship and your buyer's agreement.
Right.
And under contract, you're putting your contract and all the documents that pertain to there. And in your close, it's really reserved for closing check if you want to take a scan of it, and HUD and CL 100. So each of those get submitted once the folder's ready.
Right.
So
for those of you who are familiar with the compliance side that we use .loop for, because that's where we used to do compliance, and for those of you who've been around long enough to remember that, this is the replacement of that compliance piece. In .loop, it was customary for you, as soon as you had a document, you could go ahead and submit it. That's a little different with command, and it's because we don't want to overwhelm the compliance coordinator. And is it also fair to say that you guys have a compliance coordinator in Mount Pleasant, Tiffany?
Yep, same one.
I figured it was. So we don't want to overwhelm them with unrelated documents. So the reason we've broken it down is we want to submit them when we get a folder finished. So initially, Tiffany talks about this. So I'm in the residential tab, by the way. So this is your standard generic residential transaction. You know, obviously you're going to see that there's one for new construction, because new construction has a few different quirks about it, and how you upload those.
Which is really
very important, mainly because the biggest difference in new construction not only is that the contract's going to look different because the builder most likely has written that contract, but also because you don't have a CL 100, you actually have a soil sample letter. It's a very different document, and so we want to make sure that there's clarity there on what it is that you need. And then there's commercial and land, which again, if any of you are in commercial sales, that looks a little bit different too, because there are different documents there. And if it's a land transaction where you're just selling vacant land, obviously same sort of thing. There's not a CL 100, there's a perk test or a soil sample letter or something like that. So it's just a few different rules of thumb. We're going to be in the residential one because that's what most of us work with. And like Tiffany said, the first folder in there is consultation. So this is when they become a client. So these are the first 2 documents on the buy side. And if it's on the sell side, it's 3 documents, or maybe 4. It's always the LLR, agency relationship disclosure, on buy and sell, always. And then it's the exclusive right to buy or exclusive right to list. Those are the documents that make them a client. And then on the list side, you're also going to have your property condition disclosure, property conditioner disclosure addendum if there's an HOA, and possibly the lead-based paint as well. So those are a few of the forms that you're going to see in this stage or in this folder. Once you've uploaded all of these forms, you can do so by adding file, and I'll show you what that is. Then you want to submit to Market Center. That's what submit to MC means, and that's when it goes to compliance coordinator. Here's where this gets fun. If you're using DocuSign, it connects directly to your DocuSign account, and you can pull the form over right away. So you just click on the DocuSign tab, and in this case, there's nothing in there, so I can't really show you. what you're going to see, if you have a signed form in DocuSign, it's going to say the name of the form, and then it's going to have a hyphen, and then it's going to say sign. So now you know which one to click on, and it assigns it without you having to download it and then upload it. That's the biggest benefit of DocuSign and the connection that we have to DocuSign within Command. However, it also works just fine if you're using some other platform to get your signatures or to get your documents. You just go to your folder, wherever it is on your computer, and download it that way. Does anybody have any questions about that while we're here? All right, hearing none, we're going to move forward. So you upload the folder. When you do, there's going to be a file name here instead of add file. And then when you get all of the ones that are required, then you click submit to Market Center. All right, then you move to the next phase. Okay, so now we're in the under contract phase. On this one, you're going to see required, and then you're going to see some that are conditionally required, because they may sometimes be required depending on the transaction. So obviously with this one, it's a buy side, and it's going to look very similar on the listing side here, but you're going to have a copy of the final ratified contract. That's the first one. The property condition disclosure or the exemption, because sometimes there are exemptions from that. A copy of the earnest money check or the wire transfer receipt, because those are the three things that are required for every transaction. What you may also see is the escrow acknowledgement. That's the one referencing the fact that the lender now has the funds. You may also see, where is it? There should be one for the lead-based paint in here somewhere. That should be conditionally required. Make that note, Tiffany. So lead-based paint could be conditionally required if it's built before 1978.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to put that in if it's required, okay? Same is true for a W-9 or a referral agreement. If this is a transaction that involves a referral, Tiffany's got to have a W-9 and a referral agreement so that she knows how much to pay them and to whom it needs to be paid. So again, these are sort of some things that may conditionally be required depending on the circumstances. Here's where I'm going to kind of put on the broker hat for a second. These other transaction documents, flood insurance disclosure, multiple buyer disclosure, the dual agency disclosure, we'll even come down here to the wire fraud warning, the earnest money disclosure. These are documents that you're not required by the brokerage to use, but they are never a bad idea. We like to call them CYA documents, and they are cover your butt documents. Obviously the butt means something else because it's an A. But these are documents that are really good practice for you to get in the habit of using. Specifically, I especially encourage the earnest money disclosure document and the flood insurance disclosure document, because these are more often than not, these are the areas where sometimes we as agents, and particularly buyer's agents, we get into trouble not explaining things properly to our clients. And these are two areas, particularly in Charleston with the flood, obviously, where this can be interesting. You want to make sure that your clients understand that even though they live in an X flood zone, it's highly advisable and you encourage them to still purchase flood insurance. That's what this flood insurance disclosure document does. It gives you that ability to have that conversation so that you're kind of making sure they know what they need to do and you're covering your tracks because you told them that it's advisable. That's what some of these other documents are for. Any questions about that stage?
Yes, I submitted a question to you privately. The
Oh.
new construction.
Yep.
Hey, this is Shawn.
Hey, Shawn.
Hey, the new construction documents, it still requires to have the copy of earnest checks and everything, because sometimes
Yes.
the builder does not give us that information. They just give us the large, long 65-page.
Yep. So for one, you got to have the large, long 65-page contract, because sometimes theirs are really long. And so in new construction, as you can see, I've switched over to new construction. I'm going to go to the under contract. That's that new construction contract. In all fairness, that's the only one that's required in the system. However, you will see the opportunity where if there's earnest money involved or they're paying a deposit, I would encourage you, even though the brokerage doesn't require it, because it's usually listed in that contract, I would encourage you to have that separate or make sure that you get it.
And you
Does
can
that
also,
answer your question?
that's a great, and under contract wording at the middle there, you'll see add item. You can
Yes.
click that and add your own customized form, a place to put a form if there isn't one that covers what you need.
And Shawn, to kind of elaborate on what you asked there, I just recently got, well, technically it's not under contract yet because we're in reservation with the builder. But my client has put down a $10,000 deposit. And so I now have a copy of that that's in here because I don't yet have a contract. So yes, it's a good idea sometimes to do those separately. If it's included in the contract though, it's not essential because it's already in the contract. I hope that makes sense, Shawn.
Yes, it does. You said you changed it to the new
Yep.
construction.
So
Where?
right here, you see here on this
Okay.
left side, I'm gonna make my mouse big.
I see it. I see
That's
it.
the drop down. So you get to toggle back and forth between the type of transaction.
And
Okay.
Shawn, it looks a little different. I'm gonna go check on that right now because Jay is using the West Ashley documents, and I'm gonna verify that this is
That's
what
true.
Mount Pleasant says.
That's true.
Okay.
Which, by the way, Tiffany, I guess that reference to the conditionally required for the
Yeah, I need you to
lead-based
send that to me
paint.
in an email.
Yeah, lead-based paint, because it's not in there. It's interesting. I hadn't noticed that. Anyway,
I'm looking for the new construction, but I can go. I'm gonna search it myself.
right
They might not
here.
have put it in
Oh, yeah.
prior to me, so I'll make sure that gets fixed immediately.
Yep.
Thank you.
So that's a drop-down selection, Shawn. Like she said, she's still building it all out, so some of it may not be there just yet, but it would be right over here.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions about the under contract section and all these fun documents? All right, so now we're going to look really quickly at closed. Like Tiffany said, the only one that is absolutely required is the ALTA statement. However, it's a good idea to always include a copy of your commission check when you do this as well. And then one of these two is going to be required. Not both, but one of them will, either the soil treatment letter or the CL 100. So it could be either one, but one of them is going to be required for you to get paid. And then what you'll see too is this custom folders here. Right now, it just gives us this add new custom folder. Once Tiffany has processed your commission and has released the DA, the distribution authorization that shows the payment breakdown, that's going to pop up here. There'll be a DA folder that you can go back to and look at any time. Any questions about the documents section?
Now, Jay, in Mount Pleasant, we have the DA is under the list of other closed. It's not a custom.
So Laura, I'm going to be switching that because when we add the DA in closed, it changes the status from approved to changed.
Okay.
And so we've had some issues with that affecting the status and what it looks like for compliance. So,
okay. And the other problem I've had along those lines, Tiffany, is where I've basically closed out transactions, but they're not showing closed out in my command profile when I go back through.
okay.
So I'm not sure how to get them to move from.
So that's actually a known issue, and I say issue because it's not really an issue. You actually have to drag and drop your opportunity to the close section, and then it'll automatically close it out.
Oh, great, Jay. Thanks.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Go for it.
What if you don't really have a buyer or seller, but you've got an incoming or an outgoing referral, and you might be waiting on that closing check to come in that hasn't hit? Is there someplace you go just to put in a copy of a referral form and the W-9?
So
or you have to send out a whole folder?
So not necessarily, as of right now, we don't require any compliance for that.
For incoming referrals.
For incoming referrals. However, what I might do is while I'm building out this new construction checklist, just do a referral checklist for you. You still will have to connect it to a contact. So you'll have to put that contact in, but if that's a place, there won't be anything for you to submit, but it could be a good checklist for to add for
Like a
you all. So you have
placeholder, yeah.
one-stop shop of all that information.
Right, thanks.
I can add that in.
And I think that's a good question too, Kathy, because with a lot of referrals that you get, or that you send, you have a referral agreement, and having that agreement somewhere where you can come back to it is helpful. So that's a really good question. All right, so now we're going to move into some of the newer stuff. Right now, we've just been kind of going over stuff you guys are already doing. Now we're going to move into some of the newer stuff, and I hope that you like it as much as Tiffany and I do.
Jay, before you go,
Yes,
can I
sir.
ask, on that soil treatment letter, is that the actual name of it, or are there other names also?
It could be slightly different. So it depends. If it's new construction, it's most likely going to be called a soil treatment letter or pest control service agreement or something like that.
New construction,
Basically,
subterranean termite?
That's it.
Okay.
That's
Just wanted to
it.
make sure. All right, thank
Because
you.
with new construction, what it means is that they've either tested the ground or that they've already, with new construction in particular, more commonly, they have entered into an agreement with a pest control provider. That means that it's under a bond and under a warranty so that it's good. So that's what those things can mean. So with that one, it goes under the soil treatment letter. And again, keep in mind too, Levon, that you want to do, I think with yours, it's a new construction folder.
Okay.
Because did the builder write the contract or did you?
The builder did.
Yep. So you definitely want to put it under new construction.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, Jay, before you change pages on this screen, under document, if you click one of those, does that give you the form in DocuSign that you can then pull up and use?
It doesn't here. And
Okay.
the reason that's the case is because not everybody chooses to use DocuSign. And we want to make sure that every agent has the opportunity to use whatever platform they want to use. So here, it doesn't give you the actual document. You would click go to transaction. And in this case, it's just going to open up the DocuSign login screen. And that's where you get the actual documents from. If you're using DocuSign. Now, if you use .loop, it's going to take you to .loop instead.
Now, .loop is going to restrict how many loops you're given for free.
Correct.
You're having to pay.
Correct.
So my expectation would be in all of our favor to go with the DocuSign and learn how to use it because that's being given
It's
to
free.
us.
It's correct.
Okay.
That is also my encouragement. Now, what I will tell you as a trainer and a agent who has been using DocuSign for a year, DocuSign has been fun.
Is that a facetious fun?
It's a fascinating fun. And I say that in the fact that it does everything we need it to do, but it's not as simple as we would like for it to be.
Thank you. And that's been my experience. And what's happened is with the last year of COVID and everything else, it's easier to regress back to what we know.
Yep.
And that's where I've fallen really in a, and once I work with clients in one format, I don't want to switch midstream with them.
And especially not until you get comfortable with it.
Right.
Right. I 100% understand that. I've gotten really comfortable with DocuSign. And I do in our market center, we do monthly DocuSign classes. I'm happy to do that with you guys as well, so that we can get you used to using DocuSign and I can show you some of the quirks, because really and truly that's what it's about. It's getting to know the quirks, especially if you're familiar with DocuSign, or I'm sorry, with .loop. It's not that it's better or worse per se, it's just that it's different.
Well, I'd love to beg you to do that for us.
Absolutely. So all that's going to happen is Tiffany's going to start putting our class on y'all's calendar.
Okay.
So
Sounds
that
good.
way you can log in and play around with that as well.
Super. Thank you.
Absolutely. That said, and I want you guys to understand, like, while .loop is still there for you, it is an expense that you're going to have to incur if you want to keep it. Tiffany, do you know how much it costs?
I don't.
I think it's like 30 something dollars a month, maybe.
My brain.
About that's standing out for some reason. I could be very wrong. So it's not unreasonable per se, but $30 a month can, can be a lot of money depending on where you are in your production. What I will also say there, Laura, is we have free through our MLS zip forms. And if you're not familiar with that, that's also a free option for you to use. So if DocuSign is just way too much for you to get used to, zip forms is also there, and quite frankly is a little bit more user-friendly than our current version of DocuSign is. The reason I specify that when I say it is the current version is because we are using what's called rooms with DocuSign. If you're familiar with using zip forms takes you to the DocuSign platform for signatures, which is exactly the same. It's no different. It is literally exactly the same. But the Rooms platform is a little bit different. And if you've used DocuSign before, it's different than what you might be used to.
So Jay, I'm an old dog, and I didn't know that zip forms actually allowed you to sign.
Zip forms doesn't, but within zip forms, you can connect to DocuSign to get signatures.
Okay. And is that what you currently do?
I use DocuSign specifically. I don't use zip forms, but I've used both because when we made this transition as a market center back in October, DocuSign did not have the South Carolina forms in the system yet. So we had to go to zip forms to get our forms. So we had to use both for a couple of months. So
Yeah.
I'm really familiar with how both work. And I will tell you, the reason that I've stuck with DocuSign is solely because of being able to just click here and add the documents without having to download them and upload them and stuff. That in and of itself is more time saving than me using .loop or zip forms.
Yeah, I agree.
More of a time
good
saver.
habit. Sure.
Yeah. So
With your help.
I'm comfortable with all three options. I mean, granted, I haven't been in .loop in a minute, but I don't think it's changed enough that I wouldn't remember because I was a certified .loop instructor. So
We appreciate you being available to the Mount Pleasant Market Center.
happy to do so.
Thank you.
I will tell you that I do like bourbon.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to sway me in any way, a nice bottle of bourbon does a lot. Jokes aside, though, for real, I'm happy to help. All right, so we're going to move now into some of the new stuff. Laura, thanks for those questions. It's really helpful, and I'm happy to help however I can. So now we're going to move to the offers side. So a lot of people are going to see this as something that really only pertains to the buyer. And I want to go ahead and preface that as this is required whether it's a buyer or a listing. Where this becomes really helpful right now, your consumer already can see this if you want them to see this. Eventually, where this gets really cool is you'll see this generate offer URL. With other KW agents and potentially other non-KW agents, you could actually create this link, send it to the people who are wanting to submit offers, and they can submit offers directly here. That's further down the road when the technology gets a little bit better for us to use that. But that's the direction we're headed, so that it's really cool for your consumer to be able to see this. Right now, many of us are used to, especially in multiple offers and especially on the listing side, that's become super, super common in the past, year. Your buyers may be looking at 3, 4, 5, 11 offers that your sellers that they need to try to sort through. That's where this comes in really handy because it allows you to put them all on paper, so to speak, and compare them side by side. So we're going to add a new offer. So if I only have one offer, I'm going to default to what it says initial offer. However, if we have multiple, then I want to name them so that I know which one I'm referring to. Okay. So, in this case, I'm going to play around like we have two offers. So I'm going to say offer one, and then I'm going to use the last name of whoever it is that's offering it. So in this, I'm going to say Tiffany is offering And so I'm going to name her as the offer here. So I'm going to create that offer. This is offer number 1 from Davis. So here's where I'm going to go in and put all the information. Again, this is basically filling out the green sheet, but we're just doing it a little bit quicker and a little bit sooner. So the offer date, we're going to say that it's today. Close date, we're saying that they're going to close January 4th. Okay. And again, all of this is just so that you can see how it works. You can select the property from the KWLS. So if it's a KW listing, it will definitely be in there. But if it's in the MLS, it's most likely in KWLS as well. So I'm just going to pick one that's here currently. It's going to always default to only your listings, by the way. So you might have to change that to all listings. And then it's going to be every single listing in North America. So you may have to, zoom it in a little bit. But I'm going to say for sale, and in this case, I'm going to select one of my listings just to move us along. All right, so we've got the address in now. All right, now we're going to go to the next section, which is parties. So like with the zip or with the green sheet, you have to put in everybody's information. So this is Tiffany Davis. What I want you to notice too is there's an asterisk on the required field. So in this case, there's a red asterisk next to name. So you got to have a name here. You don't have to have email, phone number, and all that sort of stuff. However, if you have it, I would encourage you to put it in, because again, this is going to be helpful for the Kelly, the AI behind the scenes in command. The more information we give her, the better she's going to be able to do for us. So the more information you can put in, the better. It's going to automatically default here to the listing agent of that property that you pulled in from the KWLS. And in this case, it's me on both sides because I'm the listing or the buyer's agent and the listing agent. So if I had chosen a different listing, it would show that listing information here. But I just want you to see that you've got both sides of the transaction represented here, whether it be you on both sides or whether it's you and a different agent, okay? Then we move to the terms. This is where this gets fun, and this is where you need to pay attention. Our terminology is a little bit different in South Carolina than in other states. And because Keller Williams is a global company, we use the same terminology across the platform. What's important to understand here is that the sales price button is not usable. I can't type anything into that box. What it wants me to do is to put an amount that is financed and an amount that is in cash. I said that backwards, but you know what I mean. And then it's going to calculate the total sales price. Now, for us, in many cases, we don't really know how much they're putting in on down payment. I don't necessarily need you to ask that question or whatever, but try to estimate it as best of what you know. Most likely you have a ballpark. You know that they're putting 3% down or 2% down or 20% down or whatever. So you can do the math. And again, while this may not seem important on this side of things, again, from a tracking standpoint and a qualification standpoint, later down the road, this sort of stuff does matter. So try to get it as accurate as possible. Next is the earnest amount. So what that means is the amount of earnest money. Now with this one, you can pick which box you type in. So kind of a standard for whatever reason in our market is $1,000. But whatever amount of earnest money they put in, it's going to give you the calculation. Okay. Now, obviously, if it's a new build, you know that they're requiring 1%. So you can just say 1% and it tells you exactly how much they need. Either one of those methods work. You get to type in either box. So that's what that means. If at any point you have questions, please stop me. The option fee. What that means in our market is if you are doing a due diligence contract, the dollar box that is the buyout fee, if you will, for due diligence, that's what this option fee means. So if a due diligence contract is what you're doing and there's a buyout for that due diligence, say in order for the client to walk away, they have to pay $100 or $300 or $10,000, whatever amount that's in that box, that's the option fee. Okay. Questions about that? It only applies to due diligence because repair procedure does not have a buyout option. All right, termination option. So again, this is where it gets kind of fun for us because we used to use days in our contract. Well, now we use a specific date. So you have to kind of do some figuring here to see what's most appropriate. Kind of a standard is termination of 10 days. Again, this is reference to due diligence because the as is or repair procedure do not have a termination option. So if you're in repair procedure, you would leave both of these blank. Questions about anything so far? This next one is a service contract. So that's a home warranty. So if they're contributing any money to a home warranty, that's a service contract. And then this next one is closing costs. Again, sort of same thing. They call it settlement costs. We call it closing costs. That's the amount that's being contributed. And as you can see, these are both seller costs. What you will see has been happening in our market recently is in some cases, buyers are paying some of these things. So if that's the case, make sure you're not entering it in here because it wouldn't work out the same way for you in the end. All right. So these are seller costs. All right. You need to fill this one out as best as possible. This needs to be as accurate as you possibly can be. Next, you move to the agent analysis. This is completely optional. This is only really used if your client's going to see both, is going to see this. For most of us, they're probably not going to see that, at least initially, not until you get used to using it at least. But at some point, probably you're going to be comfortable enough with this that you're going to want your consumer to be able to look at this. So we're going to leave this blank for today, but this gives you an opportunity to say to your client, hey, this is what's really good about this offer, and this is what's really bad about this offer, and then kind of give a summary of the offer. So this is optional, but it's there for you to use. All right. Then you're going to see the summary, if you will, of the offer. Now, like we talked about earlier, there is often right now multiple offers. So we're going to do what that looks like. Now, again, we're focused on this as actually a buyer transaction. And so some of you might ask, well, why do I need to see multiple offers on the buyer side? Well, what if your client is looking at two different properties and they really want to know, like, what's the bottom line difference between the two properties? This is a way that you can show them what that bottom line is. Many of you use a net sheet and that works beautifully if that's how you do it. But if you don't, this gives you that tool to do so. So I'm going to add a second offer. We're going to run through it really quick, just so you can see the difference. And again, I'm naming it something different, naming it the last name of whomever it is that's making the offer. And I'm going to just run through it really quickly so you can see that it's a little different from the other one. All right, so now you see both offers, and now you can see the side-by-side comparison. You get to look at them and pay attention to the differences between the offers, okay? At some point, again, if your client is using this, then they're gonna get to see this and they're gonna make their exception or their rejection. But for the time being, that's what you're doing. So you have to decide which one of these are we going with. And so in this case, I'm gonna click accept. Now, what I want you to notice here before we move forward is right now, you've got two offers in the offers tab, and the commissions tab is still, I can't click on it. I can't do anything with it. Okay. It's still grayed out. All right. When I click accept to one of these offers, commissions now comes alive. All right. So now that I've clicked accept, I can go on to the commissions tab. What I want to also point out to you is there's an option here to change the response. Add analysis, send the offer. What that means is you're actually sending it to your consumer, and it's going to give you the ability for to send an email to them directly from the offer. So there's lots of functionality here that's really kind of cool. All right, so now we're going to move on to the commissions tab. Does anybody have questions about offers before we move into the commissions tab? All right, offers is pretty straightforward. It's you just filling out the information, the basic information of the deal. Now we move to commissions. This is the cool part. So with green sheets, you're having to put everything in and you just kind of assume it's all right because you can't necessarily see certain things. What's cool about commissions is in real time, it pays attention to where you are on your cap. So you're going to see here for me, I've already capped for the year, so it's not going to show you any breakdowns on me, but it is going to show you here where you stand on your way and your path to capping. Okay, so that's going to have information. What I want you to also see is this missing information. There's a contract date that's missing. So I need to come back in and now I need to edit it. What you're going to notice is that edit of the contract is actually going back to the same details tab. So I could come back to this details tab and make these edits here. See how that went in and put the contract date right here? When I put these dates here, then I'm already going in and filling that information out. Any questions about that? All right, so this is where this gets fun. So one thing I want you to notice about South Carolina as a general rule is this add co-broker payment is an option that we are never going to use. In South Carolina, we don't need to do that because the attorneys divide out the commission at closing. One goes to the seller side, one goes to the buyer side. In some states, the attorney gives every bit of it to the seller side, and then that brokerage has to divide it out. We don't do that, thankfully, so we will never ever need that co-broker payment thing. So you can just forget it's even there. All right. Next is add another agent. Say, for instance, that you're on a team or you're doing a deal with an agent in your office and you're splitting it somehow. That's what this is for. So you're going to add that agent. This is an in-office agent. So it has to be in your office. So if it's for Mount Pleasant, they have to be a Mount Pleasant an agent. If it's in West Ashley, they have to be a West Ashley office. It doesn't work unless it's in your office. Okay.
Can I say one more thing on that?
Yep, go for it.
You're also going to feel the urge to put them as an inside referral. Do not do that either. We don't use inside referrals in this market center. If you put, say you're sharing, Laura, I'll use you. Say you're sharing it with, I don't know, Bill, a commission, right? You're not on a team, but you put him as an inside referral. You're going to then be assuming all the company dollar cost of that full 20% for the full commission. And you don't want to do that. You want to pay for the portion that's yours and you want Bill to pay for the portion that's his. So that's why it's always, if you're adding an agent, always use add agent. And we just don't use inside referral ever. That's all I got.
Yep.
That's good to know. Thanks.
100%. So here again, I'm adding this other agent.
Sorry. If you do it, I usually fix it, but it's kind of annoying. So that's just my pro tip. I will always fix it, but I don't want
to. Trying to support you, Tiffany, and take more off your plate instead of add to it.
That'd be great. I'm seeing that's been more of a confusion as of late. Like I fixed one in West Ashley today and I fixed one in Mount Pleasant yesterday. So that's a point I wanted to make sure we start getting across.
So add a co-broker and inside referrals, we never, ever, ever use. All right. So again, you've got the agent here. Now this is where you split units. You know, you could split it in half if you wanted, or whatever it is that you guys have agreed to, that's what happens. And then it calculates the commission for that agent for you. You have to click the calculate button. And then it decides whether or not there's any royalties. Again, in this case, I think Michael's already capped for the year 2. That's why it's showing me 0 here. So there's nothing coming out. But then it says, well, hey, does Michael want to give money to KW Cares? Yep, he wants to give $25. Does he want to give money to Kids Can? Yes, he does, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, these are the options that you have within your current green sheet. Where it becomes really fun is, say, for instance, there was a deduction. Say that you and Michael agreed to pay for the home warranty. So we have a deduction and we specify what that deduction is. And that in this case is a home warranty. So we want to specify that I'm paying $500 for the home warranty. So we fill all that information out that way. All right. So that's where we would add that sort of stuff. If it's a new build community, for instance, and there's a bonus, so you get the 3% plus they're offering an additional $2,500 or whatever. This is where you add that $2,500 part because it's not going to necessarily come in a percentage style. So you would add that down here. So this would be a bonus. The bonuses is important because, like Tiffany said, with bonuses, sometimes if you're not capped, the bonus money doesn't have company dollar associated with it, but your commission does. So in that case, you're paying company dollar on the commission, but not on the bonus. Okay, if you're capped, it doesn't really matter. But if you're not, that could mean a big difference. So just, again, technicalities of where money goes and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to delete this. I'm not adding another agent. I'm going to keep it just as me. And then I'm going to show you here that this is a $4,200 commission, and it splits it out, again, all the way. So for me, and me being capped, it's completely me getting it all. I feel like there's one more thing I need to show you. Nope, that's it, because it's the adding of the items. Now, here's the other thing. So if there is an outside referral, this is where we would add that as well. So we come down here to the extra payment options and we click that, and it's outside referral. Again, we don't use inside referral, only outside referral. And then we specify, am I paying them 25%? Am I paying them 20%? Whatever that is, we specify. And then you will have to choose using the W-9, you're going to type EIN and you're going to type that brokerage's EIN number in this, their tax number right here. And then you're going to say, it's Keller Williams, Atlanta, or whatever it is. And then the agent's name. And then the mailing address for the brokerage. So whatever that is, you put the mailing address for the brokerage, which should be on the W-9, which is why you get a copy of the W-9, and then a phone number. And in all fairness, that could be the phone number for the brokerage, or it could be the phone number for the agent. Either one is fine, just so that we can get a hold of somebody if we need to.
Can I put another add note
Yep.
in here? If you put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it will error and you will get it sent back. That's usually the easy. Or if you do all ones, if you do all nines, if you do all zeros. So it is important to get the W-9 and make sure you put the broker name and address accurately, because it'll let you submit. It will get rejected back on my end and you'll have to go back in and do the whole thing again anyway. So.
And if I can add something to like what Laura said, like Tiffany is going to have to fix it if you don't do it right. If you don't do it right, then there might be a delay. And if Tiffany's having to fix, 13 commissions today, then that's probably going to cause a delay for all 13 people.
Well, and part of it too is like everybody on this call knows me for the most part. I don't mind going in and fixing. However, the commission request is really your way of telling me what you're expecting to get paid and what the splits are supposed to be and all the information I need. I have a lot of people ask me, did I do it correctly? And for me, I'm kind of like, well, I don't really know. Did you? Because I didn't know if there was a referral. I didn't know if there was a split. I didn't know if you reduced it by a home warranty. The only way I know is if you tell me on this commission request. And so really, this is your way of communicating with me what your payment should be made. Same as if you're in productivity coaching and you're paying for a coach in some form. Put that in there so that one, you can track accuracy of your money, but then also so that I don't miss something. Because if you don't put this referral in here, I won't pay your referral. Even if you put it in compliance, I'm looking at the commission request. And,
well, and if I can add to why that's really important on the referral is if she doesn't pay the referral and then you have to pay it out of pocket, the worst part of that is that then you're subject to all of the tax on that payment because it's not going to show up on that person's 1099 because
Well, I
it's
can
going to
fix
be
anything.
under the table.
I
And
can
she
fix it.
can, but it gets complicated. is
It
my
does
point.
get complicated. So don't miss those referrals.
Correct.
And
It gets
Tiffany, like
complicated.
Tiffany, I so appreciate all that you do to keep both market centers thriving. But shouldn't this class be a requirement for everybody that works, that is, you know, hanging their license at Keller Williams?
100%. It's hard to require 1099 independent contractors to do anything. However, one thing we've seen is in West Ashley, when we were gung ho, I was 100% over there, and I was selected as one of, I think, Jay, we were like one of like 10 market centers, like labbing this whole process out. So we were all in, like everybody was all in. We've been building this out this whole time, and Jay and I've been close with that. In Mount Pleasant, we never really had made that transition because there's so many more. I mean, at the time, West Ashley had what, 80 agents
80
and like
agents.
20 transactions in a month. So like we had a lot of free time on our hands. And so Mount Pleasant was a different big boat. And so what we're going to be doing over the next 30, 60, 90 days, especially now that we have a full team, is going to be pushing these classes more so that, I mean, my goal would be like end of February, we're 100% in commissions like this.
You know, Keller Williams has invested so much in creating this fabulous system, and it needs to be utilized, but we can't utilize it if we're not comfortable with it.
100%.
Correct. 100%.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. So to kind of wrap things up here, once you do this, the commission, there's this button to submit. I'm not going to submit it because this is not a real transaction, and I don't want Tiffany to have to delete it. But what I want to reference to is currently, just like with a green sheet, you know, we want to get you to submit this as soon as you have a ratified contract. Mainly because it's so important for us to know what we have coming. You know, I referenced it this way because this is something that most people can kind of appreciate. You know, Tiffany does like to take vacation on occasion. And if she knows that we have 37 closings on a Friday, she may decide, you know, I'm not taking vacation that day because that's a very busy day for the office. Okay. And then she can choose a different day to take her little trip that she wants to go on to Asheville or whatever it is. Okay. So if you don't put that in and tell her, hey, I've got a closing on this day, she doesn't know. And so then it's again, it's the thing, like, this is how we communicate in a business sense. And the more that we can do that together, the better we're all going to be, and the more happy we're all going to be.
I love that you always connect it and try to make my life easier. So I'm going to flip the script and put it to the agents on why it can make your life easier. I'll go back to when I was in Mount Pleasant 3 years ago. We had an agent that got into a near fatal motorcycle accident. And I mean, like near fatal. And he was in the hospital for a week. He told me when he recovered, thankfully, that one of the first thoughts he thought of the first day was how he had green sheets outstanding that he had never submitted. And if he wouldn't have made it, we wouldn't have known about it to help support the clients. And that's just like, that's not a scare tactic. That's more of because these agreements are with the brokerage, we also want to be there as a resource to you so that if something happens, we know these closings are happening and we will continue the customer service for your clients all the way to the end.
Right.
If we don't know about it, we can't do that.
If nothing we've learned this year about, you know, from 2020 has told us that real life happens and it's not always exciting. You know, many of you on this call probably know Bob. He used to be in the Mount Pleasant office, and then he was in the West Ashley office. He passed away kind of unexpectedly for most of us, and he had clients that he was working with at the time. Because he had all of his documents and all of his green sheets and stuff in, we as a brokerage were able to really pick that up and quickly transition that to someone else to take care of those clients. And those sorts of things really happen. Do I want to think that any of us, that's going to happen to us tomorrow? No, of course not. But it is a real life thing that can really happen. And so in order for us to make sure we avoid complicated situations, this is how we do that. Now, also with submitting those green sheets. So say you submitted the green sheet submitted the commissions tab, not green sheets, because we're getting away from that. When you submit that commissions page, it's going to send it over to Tiffany, and she's going to have to approve it, all that fun stuff. It helps her from planning. If there's a change, maybe the purchase price changes because you go through some renegotiations during repairs, or maybe the closing date changes because something happens, whatever. Those things also happen. As of now, you cannot edit that. You need to do the same thing that you've done with your green sheets in the past. Send Tiffany an email saying, hey, this transaction needs to be changed to this. And she can quickly and easily go and do that. Eventually, I don't know when, but eventually you'll have the ability, once it's submitted, to make those changes. And then it still has to be approved again. But for now, that tool, they haven't turned that switch on just yet, but eventually that will be there. So just keep in mind, for now, if there's a change, you need to let Tiffany know. Because if on today's December 10th, if on December 10th she sees that you have a closing and she doesn't have a check, she's gonna be like, hey, is everything okay? What's going on? You know, questions?
So yes, I do have a question. Like you said, we are unable to make the changes now because that's very common when you have a client that goes to the, like for instance, new build. That's kind of what I've been dealing with the last couple of months. And they go and make major add-ons and everything. And if we're doing this in the beginning, then it's gonna be a big difference. Like one of my last one was like $40,000 difference.
Right.
Closer to closing, and then
Right.
I'm not being able to edit the actual commissions tab. I did submit a green sheet, so I mean the green sheets right as of now is still valid, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I just want to
Even
be
on a
clear.
green sheet, Shawn, you can't change anything
can't
after
change
it's
it.
submitted. And for new construction, we do realize that there's a ton of big changes. So I'm not asking you to submit a new construction commission request like
Mhm.
day one you signed. It's like let's get through those big price changing.
Well, yeah,
However,
that's what I was
what
gonna
we are
say.
asking it to be not be the day of closing.
Correct. So
Right.
with new construction, what I would say, Shawn, is, and every builder is a little bit different, but depending on where you are in the stage. So, with some of those new builds, you are 7 months away from closing. Obviously, don't submit your green sheet or your commissions request just yet. But with most builders, you get a 30 or 40-day heads up that they are in that final phase where now they've set a closing date. At that point, that's when I would do your green sheet
Okay, understood.
or your commissions request.
Yeah, okay. I have one more question. This may be a question for Tiffany. I see that in the commissions tab, I'll just have mine open up and because I haven't capped yet, but anyway, as the split is still at 30%, and I thought we were already changed from 80 to 20.
We should be. I've been finding stragglers here and there as I've gone through. I will look at your profile now and make the change. Do you run your production through you or Shantae?
This one is through mine.
This one's through yours?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make sure it's updated on the back end. It might take some time in command to edit, but I will make sure. Yep, it still says 70, so I got it fixed.
Okay.
Yeah, and that, for one, Shawn, that's a really good question. And two, guys, if you see that and it's wrong, ask Tiffany about it. Like, this is not we're not trying to shaft you or whatever. It's just that every single agent has potentially a different split because one might be on a team, one might not be on a team. All these different things come in. So if you see an issue, ask about it.
For sure.
Because we're in business together.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll check Shantae's one as well, Tiffany. Clarify.
What you will see too, though, is that circle and that breakdown, once you've submitted a couple of these, it gets real accurate. Like, for whatever reason, the first couple of times it doesn't connect as well and isn't as accurate. But once you've done it a couple of times, it's in real time and it gives you some really accurate information, which is really cool. Helps you count down to capping a lot quicker.
Right. Okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we are already just a few minutes over 3 o'clock. I will stick around if you guys have any questions, but I want to make sure we take advantage, respect your time as well. I know that Nate is going to be doing a kind of a follow-up class over there with you guys on this. I think, did you say next week, Tiffany?
Yeah, I think we're going to get it on the calendar on Tuesday. I have to finalize the time with him.
So there's another opportunity for you to see this in action. And like I said,
recording uploaded as well.
Tiffany is going to be adding our DocuSign class to your calendar. So if you guys want to pop in on that, please do. I am going to, let me stop screen share here. I'm going to put in the chat my information. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
You guys know my stuff. I email you all the time. So you can always just reply to any one of those emails if you have questions.
Well, it has been a pleasure talking with you guys today. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, y'all have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone.